Yesterday was my wife's birthday, and we really enjoyed having some of you join us at dinner through Periscope when my granddaughter grabbed my phone and started scoping. Isn't technology wonderful? Today, we are reading Exodus 32 through 34. Lots of good stuff in there. We see the Israelites, they're still at Mount Sinai. Moses has been on the mountain with God for almost 40 days. Aaron, the high priest, was with the people at the base of the mountain. And we read of a great apostasy that took place, a falling away that happened quickly. I would like to examine that just for a moment. Exodus chapter 32 verse 1 says, "Now when the people saw that Moses delayed coming down from the mountain, the people gathered together to Aaron and said to him, 'Come, make us gods that shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we don't even know what has become of him.' It had been a little over a month, and the people were beginning to get restless. Some were starting to think that Moses was gone for good. Think about this. Only a month earlier, they had seen and heard God on the mountain. And they ran with fear, asking Moses to go up and talk with God for them. They were eating manna every day that God was providing. They had seen God turn bitter water sweet and provide them water from a rock. They had watched the great army of Egypt destroyed by God. They followed the cloud by day and the fire by night for 3 months to get where they were camped. And in just 40 days, they get restless when they have to wait on God and take Him at His word. Then they begin to look for other sources. "Come, make us other gods that shall go before us," they cried out. How those words echo down through the ages of history. How many times have God's people rejected God and gone after other gods, the gods of this world, when they were tested, tried, or tempted? But what disturbs me most in this is the response of the man of God. Aaron should have rebuked the people. He should have called upon the name of the Lord. But instead, his response is to appease them and follow the apostasy to continue in their hearts. And Aaron said to them in Exodus 32:2, "Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." In other words, he says, "Bring me your gold, and I'll make you an alternative god." How many times have we heard that? How often do we hear that same idea from supposed men of God today? How often do those that should be correcting us and separating us from this world, from the lusts of the flesh, the pride of life, instead give in to our fears, our desires, and our cries for compromise? How this story might have changed if Aaron had stood strong in the Lord and the power of His name and rebuked this apostasy. But you know the story. The people bring their gold earrings and their jewelry to Aaron, who then shapes them. He takes his hands and he shapes them into a golden calf. And then he declares a feast day. But there's something interesting in that I want you to know. The people were declaring that this golden calf had brought them out of Egypt. This was their deliverance. This was their Savior. And then Aaron builds an altar before the calf. And he says in Exodus 32:5, it says, "So when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, 'Tomorrow is a feast to the Lord.'" And he's using the name Jehovah. You see, a little compromise with this world is a dangerous thing. A little giving in to the desires of the flesh never stops with just a little. Now Aaron was substituting the things of this world for the God of heaven. And in an attempt to still be godly, he declares a feast to Jehovah, to the Lord. The only problem is now the Lord is a golden calf. Listen to how Aaron tries to explain his compromise when Moses, you know the story, God says, Moses, get down. The people are doing an abomination unto me. And Moses comes down, he throws the tablets of stone, he breaks them. He begins to rebuke the people. I'm so hungry for a man of God. I want to be that man of God. I challenge you to be that man and that woman of God that will stand for what's true. Moses comes down from the mountain and he begins to talk to Aaron. In Exodus 32, 21 through 24. And it says, and Moses said to Aaron, what did these people do to you that you have brought so great a sin upon them? Did you catch that? What did they do to you that you have brought this sin upon them? He was blaming the man of God for the compromise because he didn't stand up. And Aaron says, do not let the anger of my Lord become hot. You know these people, that they're set on evil. For they said to me, make us gods that shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we don't even know what's become of him. Now catch this in verse 24. And I said to them, whoever has any gold, let them break it off. So they gave it to me, and I cast it into the fire, and this calf just came out. It was their fault, Moses. This calf just came out of the fire all on its own. This apostasy, this abomination in the church, it just happened. I didn't have anything to do with it. How often do we blame this generation or this culture, this day of compromise? We look at the sin that we have allowed in our lives and in God's church, and we somehow think it just sprung up out of the fire. It is time to admit our complicity in the false worship and the idols that have filled our lives and the church. It's time for pastors and leaders to stand and boldly declare the word of the Lord. It's time for God's people to come out from among them and be separate unto the Lord. This doesn't happen by accident. It happens because someone is bold in the Lord. It happens because someone makes a stand for truth. It happens because someone declares, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Will that someone be you today? Blessing awaits the man or the woman of God that will live uncompromised and separated from this world. Let that person be me. Let that person be you. I want you to have a great day today, and I want you to stand and be strong in the power of Jesus' name. God bless you.